My inspiration for this piece is rooted in a fascination I've had for a long time now in suspended forms like fireworks or swarms of birds flying, just to give an example. And what interests me in terms of those forms is the psychological state that they engender. So it's not so much that I'm trying to produce a representation of a firework or a flock of birds, but there's something in that passing moment of motion that I'm interested in capturing. So in terms of content, it's rooted in those forms, but not illustrating those forms. And in other ways, because of that interest in a passing moment, I've been fascinated with artwork that is non-static by nature. So in addition, this piece is attempting to both convey a psychological state and a non-static state. So different than the other artists in the show, my piece was created in my home studio and then brought here to be installed, which basically involves it being attached to a blower so that it can start its inflation and deflation cycles. What I needed at home to produce this piece was a good sewing machine, a lot of plastic bags, tape, and some knowledge of basic geometry, which I used to create the pattern that produces the shape. My studio isn't very large, so even after sewing yard after yard of plastic bags and cutting them into the patterns and putting the whole thing together with a certain kind of blueprint in my mind, I had no idea until I was here at the Kohler Art Center how it would feel in the space, whether it was achieving its proper dimension, etc. So while there's a sense of logical progression in the process of making the piece, there's a considerable amount of stress until that moment of verifying that it's working. I've been interested in using plastic for probably about 5 years, and the reasons are pretty pragmatic. It's everywhere, ubiquitous, comes in beautiful colors. It's like a sheet material you can sew, you can melt, you can do all kinds of things with it. So it was really for pragmatic reasons that I was attracted to it, and originally I was using only repurposed plastic in my work, and that felt really great for obvious reasons. But more recently, as the requirements for certain exhibitions have demanded a kind of more specific quality in the work, I found that I go between sort of recycled and bought plastic. So, and tape, again, it's one of those materials that's just so ubiquitous, and I enjoy the modesty of working with materials that are common. So in that sense, it fits both the scale and the demands of contemporary art exhibition spaces and my budget. I think what I'd like people to experience most from this piece is something of that emotional harmonic that I'm so interested in looking at fireworks or flocks of birds. In this piece, it comes at the moment of full inhalation and then at that brief moment of exhalation when the blower stops and the piece begins to collapse. There's something about that psychological state that I think is illustrated most poignantly in that moment. So both that psychological state and also the auditory experience of the piece, which the blower is very mechanical and bombastic, but as soon as it shuts off, it's like rain. And I really love that sound. So for me, those are the important qualities.